Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rankus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Jen Borley, a master's level registered nurse and a digestive health professional through the Food Enzyme Institute. Jen owns Alo Health, where she offers a wide range of services designed to support whole body function. Jen specializes in functional wellness, something she came to after her own health challenges weren't getting answered through traditional medicine. That personal journey led her to a path of supporting the body's natural ability to heal by identifying underlying stress and creating individualized wellness plans, which you'll hear about more in episode 1. Jen is a lifelong learner, an avid reader, a hiking lover, and admittedly a bit of a plant addict. She and her husband Scott have been married for 27 years, and they have built a beautiful family with 3 sons, Spencer, Parker, and Carter, plus their new daughter-in-law Dakota, and of course, their granddog Drex. We are really excited for you to meet Jen. Let's jump into today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Motherhood Alliance podcast. We are excited to welcome back Jen Borley. Welcome back, Jen.
Thanks for having me.
We had an excellent conversation in this last episode, in episode 1, talking all about digestive enzymes, which is, you're specialized in this. This is such a really cool topic to just bring out into the world and for people to understand. In this one, we're going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into exactly what you do. And we're going to start with like the functional medicine, functional wellness part of it. Now, you don't say functional medicine, and you prefer more functional wellness. Can you explain the difference between those two terms?
Yes, we can.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I use functional wellness is I'm a registered nurse. I have a nursing license. I have a bachelor's degree in nursing. I also have a master's degree in nursing. However, I am not a nurse practitioner. I do not practice medicine, which means I don't diagnose, treat, or cure disease. My approach is a functional side of helping people's function improve so that their body can overcome. And so it's not an original term, functional wellness. You'll see it in other places. But basically, I do not practice medicine, and I want that to be very clear because I would like to keep my nursing license, and I want it to be very obvious to the consumer that I am not going to be prescribing, I am not going to be diagnosing, and that you really should still have a medical provider that can do that if that's what you need. The benefit that I do have is I have over 27 years of that medical nursing experience. So if I identify something that could be more of the disease pathway, I am going to tell you right out, this is outside of my lane, and I believe you should go and consult with your medical provider. There are natural ones in the area, holistic providers in the area, and there are ways of approaching that with your established PCP.
Mm-hmm. Do you do very similar things as far as like what a medical or what a functional medicine provider does? Or what's the differences between what you do and what they might do?
Well, I'd like to focus on what I do in general, just because it's up to them to explain what they do and how they do it.
Sure.
So I identify the underlying stress in the body, and identifying that it comes through a number of ways. When I initially talk with people, usually through that free 15-minute phone consult that you can sign up for on our website, I'm going to explain all of what I'm explaining now, and then I'll add to it during this podcast of what I really dig into. I start with an intake form that we collect your information, your history, what you've been through, what you're experiencing, and a little bit about your life and the different things that you're going through prior to our signature consult. Our signature consult is an 1.5 hour long consultation with me where we do a physical exam, which includes a structural exam, standing and sitting, and then a laying exam where it's a palpation exam. And this is, in my opinion, where some of that magic comes in, because every organ and every system in your body is connected to a point on the outside of your body. That wiring develops very early on when you're growing in your mom's belly, and it does not go away, even if you've had an organ removed. So if there's a stress in an organ or a system, and I palpate that area, the body's going to respond with an involuntary muscle contraction. And that involuntary muscle contraction is going to lead to a physical change in position, which is visual. You can see the change in position. I collect that information. There are numerous palpation points from head to toe. So I collect that during that physical assessment. Then another magical part is we have a conversation about your life, your habits, your routines, the stresses that you would like to get rid of, and the stresses that you're choosing to keep. Because we all have stress in our lives that we continue to keep in our lives on purpose. That might be people.
Well, I have a question about the palpation piece, because if somebody hasn't heard that word, or they're like, wait, what does that mean? Are you just using your hands and like doing like a mini massage in a certain area? One of these trigger point areas that you're talking about? Is this with a tool? Like, what does palpation mean?
Thank you for asking that. So it is simply pressing on a part on the outside of your body. So for instance, let's say one of the nasal stress points are right underneath your cheekbones. So you may even check this now. You can take your fingers and push up where your cheekbones are and push up in there. And if you're noticing a little sensitivity, that could mean a positive stress point. And that's a double stress point. That's a lymphatic and a nasal stress point. And around this time of the year, you may be experiencing some of that with things that are trying to be filtered out of your body due to environmental factors or being exposed to certain things. So that stress point would be that. And it's applying pressure so that the person who is applying the pressure, your fingertips show a different color. When you press down on something, you can kind of blanch things. So it's not meant to be a painful palpation. Sometimes it is for the person getting palpated, depending on how sensitive their bodies are. But that is the pressure that you apply, is that palpation exam.
Can you give us a couple other examples of ones where if you're palpating an area and you get that reaction, like that's indicating something?
Absolutely. So most people are familiar with where their gallbladder is, correct? To the right side underneath your right rib cage. So that area will often become a little sensitive if you're having stress in your gallbladder or maybe your liver, which could indicate an issue with fat or protein digestion or both. So that area could be tender when you push. But beyond tenderness, some people are ticklish or just sensitive to being touched. But there's usually a muscle contraction that you can feel if that organ is stressed. And when I do the palpation exam, you're laying down on a table, hopefully relaxed. And I do my best to keep you relaxed and let you know where I'm going to be pushing. But that pushing in there, that can be a very obvious stress point for people that are having a stressed biliary system is what we call that, but the gallbladder and liver combination there. So there are so many overlapping stress points as well. And that's where it really takes somebody that's trained and certified through the Food Enzyme Institute to identify the different nuances, if you will, of what we want to address.
What are some of the most common stress points that you see that people are reacting to?
Well, over the past few years, the stomach lining stress point has become very pronounced in a lot of people. I mean, there's been a little stress, right? So that one is very, I don't want to use the the term popular, but it is a very common stress point. Common does not mean normal, of course, but it's the one that's between the rib cage, sort of where your ribs meet in the middle below your sternum, and that is the mucosal lining of the stomach. Another big indicator of that one potentially being positive, because of course we start to investigate based on what somebody's been going through, is the symptoms of burning in your stomach or feeling that acid coming up.
Like heartburn.
Exactly. Those symptoms like that. So if somebody has that, that's kind of an indicator to me is they're most likely going to have that stress point. But as I've learned over all of the years is that I can assume all of the things, but we all know what happens when we assume things. So the best thing I can do is assess my client and do the palpation exam and put those pieces together.
Okay, so they would fill out an intake form, you do the structural exam, you do the palpation exam, and then you sit down. Well, they also provided their history, right? But then you sit down to discuss kind of your findings so far.
So there are a couple pieces between that. We talk about routines, lifestyles, habits, how you eat, when you eat, what you eat, and how you feel about that. And then your other routines like work, sleep, all the little pieces that fit into overall wellness, which we could be here for like another month talking continuously about that, but really trying to narrow it down. We do a review of the intake form. What are you taking? Either, what are you taking prescription wise? Because that's important. Those can be stressors as well. What are those certain things addressing? What supplements are you already taking? So we review all of that. And then I'll do a little education about foundational health, just to get a view of how we need to address things and what order, because there's a priority.
Can you give us kind of an overview on your recommendations, like just in general in health? And when you're talking about somebody with this, like what are your recommendations for having a healthy life?
Oh, that's a loaded question, right? Right.
Just give us kind of like, your 10,000 foot view on it.
Right. Oh gosh. Yeah. If I had the answer to that, well, I kind of do, but yeah, it's tough. I'm still working on it myself and still learning more and more every day about the different things that come into play. Our exposure to light, to daylight, our routines, our sleep. And it's really, if I could package it all up in a cute little bow, it would be very overwhelming because it all depends on where the person's starting.
Yeah.
Because you guys have taken your wellness seriously, starting at a young age. So you would be quote unquote easier to teach, to guide. Whereas somebody that is, doing all of their meals, fast food, not getting good sleep, not getting any movement into their life, spends their day in a really dark room and stays up all night playing video games or something like that.
Bright lights and
all of these things that they'd have further to come. So it kind of just depends on where you are, and that's what I'm about, is meeting people where they are, and then giving them baby steps and behavior changes, because we all know what happens when we attempt the New Year's resolution phenomenon.
Yeah.
I'm going to start all this really great, and I'm going to stop doing all these things that might be negative. And I'm going to try to create this perfect or this perfection. And I'm all about progress over perfection and baby stepping your way, because that's more attainable, sustainable, and affordable, the baby steps. But I will have people that are like, okay, I want the answer. I'll take whatever you want. And I don't like chasing symptoms with supplements.
Okay.
Because that is that's like practicing pharmaceutical nutrition. And I don't want to do that. I want to practice, nourishing the body. In fact, alo means to nourish in Latin. So we want to nourish the body and then help strengthen and then help sustain. So nourish, strengthen, sustain bodies. And everybody starts at a different spot. So I love that question. Absolutely love that question, but it's different for everybody.
Do you feel most people are coming to you because of symptoms? Have they been through kind of the medical ringer and they're just trying to find answers? They're just desperate for answers.
Yes. I've had many people, especially lately, who feel like they're being gaslit in traditional medicine, and men and women alike, even parents, because parents know when there's something not right with their child. They usually know. And the answers that they're given, by all means, you should definitely bring your child to their doctor to be evaluated. However, I'm seeing so many young people being put on pharmaceuticals to cover up a symptom rather than addressing the underlying nutritional deficiency. So the number of people, especially young people, like we're talking as young as 10, that are being put on anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications, also oral contraceptives, because of a potential irregular cycle or headaches that they may be having or experiencing, or, feeling nervous about things. It's the repercussions of that are so severe. And it might sound alarmist, but taking something, if you go to a doctor, whether you go to the doctor for your child or go to the doctor for yourself, and the first thing that they recommend is a medication.
Rethink your doctor. I'll say it for you.
Yeah. I question everything.
Yeah.
I mean, thank them for their opinion, but remember it is an opinion, and get another opinion. I'm not saying that those medications are, useless for everybody, but most of them have big consequences, and you're not told about those consequences. Yeah. And that, I learned about informed consent early on in my nursing education. And that is so important, to be informed about the risks, the benefits, and then how long you'll have to be on something. If a doctor tells you that you have to be on this forever, ask why.
Yeah.
Be a 2-year-old, ask why, and have them explain it. So important, and it's all about being an advocate for your own well-being. Some of these people are so desperate. So to answer your question, I'll try to circle back because I can pretzel off. I do get people that have had symptoms for a long time that have been unresolved with traditional medical treatment, because they use the traditional things, which sometimes are needed, but then they need help fixing what was affected by that treatment. For instance, if you have an infection, like let's just throw out their strep, probably should use an antibiotic for that. Are there some natural things that can help? Absolutely. However, again, if that's been identified, you want to take care of that. You don't want to poo-poo that off, because it can lead to significant issues. So, they carpet bomb your microbiome, and then we have to nurture it back and build it back up. But it's not the same for everybody. So you want to support normal function. You want to support normal nutrition, and then support that microbiome to get back to normal, so that you don't have those repercussions down the line of an imbalanced gut biome. Yeah.
Now, I know that you offer testing in your office, and we're going to be diving into that in the next episode, is like a lot of the actual tests that you can do. But you haven't mentioned tests yet in your signature consult. So at what point do you do testing outside of like the hands-on palpational stuff?
So you'll often hear the term, we don't guess, we test. I don't guess, I assess. So I assess first, because when people come in for all these myriad of things that are going on with them and they want to get back to balance, first I need to assess their body and see what it's telling me, so that I can narrow down what testing might be most appropriate for them, or if any testing is appropriate for them. Because if I were to throw microbiome and hormone testing at everybody that had those kinds of symptoms, we would, of course, make a lot of discoveries, but discoveries that we could have made with the assessment first and started to address them, and maybe gotten rid of some of the surface level things, and then really pinpoint on, do we really need to do that hormone test, or should we really be focusing on the microbiome first? Because we can't address hormones unless the gut is balanced. Medicine can address hormones really right off the bat, but you're always going to be hitting that nail with the hammer, because if you don't address the gut, your hormones can't balance out. And that has to do with all hormones, not just the female hormones that we automatically think of, but even like when I was going through my thyroid imbalance, there were a lot of nutritional things. So it's really important to address, okay, what's the body telling me? What do we need to address first? Like, our lymphatics taking out the cellular trash? Are we getting the right foods in? Are we able to digest and absorb them? So digestion, and then bowel elimination. Oh gosh, we could talk a whole episode on poop.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure. Well, I feel like this just really gives somebody a really good framework on what to expect within your office. So just to kind of summarize all this, after you've done the hands-on exams, you've learned about their wellness history, you've educated them in different things, then you discuss, right, the findings, and then you individualize each plan for each person. So tell us a little bit about where do you start? Is it literally starting with gut stuff first pretty much every time? Like, what is always the first stepping stone? Because people, when they're coming in here, in order to see results, they need to buy in. They need to be ready to like walk this journey with you and take it seriously, right? Which can also be intimidating to some people. So I'm sure you have to start out gently, like you said, with a lot of people. But how do you individualize these plans, especially when probably a lot of people are dealing with similar symptoms?
Great question. So again, that priority sequence, we have to start with addressing lymphatic, body taking out the cellular trash that it makes every day, then making little tweaks to maybe how they're eating. It might not even be what they're eating. If everybody came in and they were doing fast food 3 meals a day, those would be super simple because all we have to do is stop that and it would be easy, but that's usually not the case. Then we talk about, digestion. We're going to support normal digestion, and I'm going to recommend a specific digestive enzyme to address the digestive stress that has been identified. Usually I am very conservative as it comes to recommending supplements. I might even have people stop taking some of the things they're already taking, just put them aside. Very few things I tell you to throw away. There are a few, but we'll go over that if that's your case. So then we talk about next steps. So I'm going to be recommending that digestive enzyme, maybe one other thing, depending. And then maybe some of the therapies that we offer at Alo Health. If there's lymphatic congestion, there are things to address that. I'm going to be giving some, I call them exercises, but they're not necessarily the typical exercises. Maybe referring to someone for structure if I identify something that is a structural issue, because I don't do structure. But there may be some other therapies that we can do to help open up those pathways. And then depending on what those findings are, I may want to see you back in 2 weeks. I may want to see you back in 4 weeks, but you get to make the decision. We are not tied to one another, so that if you're feeling really great after just those little changes and you just want to run with it, that's fantastic. If you want to continue the journey, we talk about what's next. So either a half an hour appointment or an hour appointment, again, depending on where your starting point is, because everybody's different. That may be 2 to 4 weeks later, if we're going to do another therapy to address lymphatic stress. And then we send you out into the world to implement those behavior changes. You can always reach out as well. You're allowed to give a call, give an email.
So when they call you, they don't get like this giant, super long, robotic chain of all these messages, and then leave a message with the nurse before you can talk to Jen. And I'm joking in a way because this is why I love you, is that you're just like, well, you're a one-woman show for the most part. And it's like, but you are available. This is the type of care people are looking for, is somebody who truly cares, can sit down and listen to them, is accessible for questions. So that's great.
Yeah, thanks. I love what I do. I have a passion for it. I am going to be, and always am, looking at other things that I can implement and introduce into Alo to help people live happier, healthier lives. And with that, I realize that my bandwidth can run a little bit thin because I, again, am always learning, always building, and maybe expanding. In fact, by the time this podcast airs, there most likely will be an announcement of other things that we may be offering at Alo Health. And I'm really excited about it, but my lips are sealed a little bit about that right now. But stay tuned. Follow us on our social medias at Alo Appleton on Instagram and Facebook, and Wellness with Alo Facebook group. Be announcing that. Super excited for that. And always building, always learning, and always willing to change things when there is good evidence that it's going to help support what we do.
That's great.
That's great. Well, thanks for walking through this. I think a lot of people, they get like stuck like a deer in headlights because they're just like not sure what to expect when they're going to take their next step, especially if they've been through the ringer of all these different appointments. They're like, I don't want to start something else.
More money,
and have it not work and whatever. And so just like hearing how this actually works and like renewing this hope again is just so helpful. So if you guys want to start this process, you can book a free 15-minute phone consult with Jen. Just find her on our website. But I'm excited for these next 2 episodes because we've been hinting kind of toward these. These are coming up. This next episode is probably going to be a little bit longer than most of them because we have a lot of different tests that we're going to be talking through, a lot of functional labs and testing that maybe you've heard of or maybe you haven't, but these could be really interesting things for you. And then in our last episode together, we're going to be walking through a bunch of the therapies that Jen offers in her office. So really, I feel like this was just a very high level intro into the tip of the iceberg of what Jen offers. So stay tuned for 2 more episodes coming up. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.